Okay, we have our last reader tonight. I think you guys probably know who it is. When the end times come, Meg will be carried from Oakland on a litter by the countless queer kids whose lives she's made richer with her work. They won't rest until she's safely tucked away on a bed of silk sheets and down comforters, and it will be from this new throne that she will keep hope and love alive with her tales. Each night, the humans, forgive us, will gather, and Meg will weave new nightmares for them and new dreams. They will see themselves anew in her stories and as survivors, and it will give them the strength they need to forage for food, even as supplies dwindle and faith fades. And as our memory of things like comfort and ease and Twitter and processed food drift away, Meg will remind us all daily of our humanity, of the things that we share, of the interior life we might ignore if she did not recall it, breathe life into it, and render it impossible to forget. We know she'll do this in the end times because she does this now. Maggie, listen.
Say a few things before I read to you from the Book of Flora. The launch for my first book, with that original cover that some of you have, took place in an abandoned firehouse that did not have a roof or a back wall, that was run by one of James Franco's less talented brothers. I tried to keep to the disaster apocalypse theme, so we had Slim Jims and Twinkies. And we drank wine out of mason jars I had been collecting in my kitchen once they had spaghetti sauce taken out of them. It was put together by my very best friends and the people closest to me, who helped me come up with the theme, which was Choose Your Own Apocalypse. A dear friend of mine, Stephanie Ann Foster, stood at the door dressed as Pandora, with a box of apocalypses that you could choose from if you did not have one of your own. My dear devoted husband came dressed as Planet of the Apes. My towering 6'8" girlfriend Chelsea came dressed as Gojira. Sorry, Julia. Thank you. And it was at the time the best party I had ever had thrown in my honor. That was 5 years ago. That was 3 books that have been published ago. And a lot has changed since then. This is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. And that's true because I have the best friends in the world and the best community in the world. It is a mortifying ordeal to be known. But it's also the only way your friends will write fanfic of you. So tonight, I'll take it. Thank you for being with me on this road from nowhere to nowhere. Thank you for reading my work and reading my short stories and paying attention because God knows I never stop talking. And I'm going to read you a little bit from this last book in the series, if you'll bear with me. Woo! Woo! I got a couple of Will Bears out there, so what you need to know about this chapter, which is close to the end of the book but does not spoil anything, is that our intrepid travelers has happened upon a circle of huts that people live in because buildings from the old world are corrupt. Traitors! The man cupped his hand around his mouth and yelled it again. Traitors! Traitors! Hut doors opened all around the clearing. Men hustled out of every door with crates and boxes, one with big glass bottles. A young boy scurried out of the woods, his hands red and covered in bee stings. He came up heedless to Connie, his grin wide and his front teeth gone. Honey, trade honey? Best honey, gather fresh today. A treat? A slice? Quick as a spider, the boy twisted to the back to pull his pack in front of him. He opened the flap, and a captive bee escaped lazily, ascending through the muggy air. The boy produced a tiny curved knife and whipped it inside the bag. He came up with a piece of fresh, dripping honeycomb, proffered towards Connie's face. Taste? Taste for nothing. Then we trade. The kid's excitement was infectious. Connie smiled a little, taking the sticky lump uncertainly. They put it in their mouth and their eyes rolled back in their head. Best, see? The kid exploded with glee, swinging his bag back behind him. We trade! We trade! He turned around to shout at the adults behind him. I trade first! The man with the long knife smiled at the kid, showing that he too had no front teeth. Right, Rocky, right. Turning back to Eddie, he sobered his face. What we trade? Drugs, Eddie said. For pain, for itch. Books, said Flora. She noted that no one looked at her when she spoke. Maybe they can't read. Eddie's already shortening and simplifying his language like they can't. Maybe he reads people better than I do. Maybe that's the better thing to read anyway. Fish, Bodhi piped out. Have some fresh, deep open ocean fish. Fat in the belly. Ink bearers. Cuttle and squid. The man with the knives tapped his chest. Papa Croc. Trade pelt. Beaver, bear, deerskin, trade meat. Possum, deer today. He pointed around the circle. Tools, wooden metal, shoes, good one. Ink marks if you want forever. Fortunes told him, blow your dick off. And honey, if you trade with Rocky. Fruits for free this season. Pointed to him myself. Each man waved or tapped his own chest in return. Eddie and Flora nodded to one another, splitting up at once. Eddie dealt with Papa Croc, trading for meat. Flora spoke to the man who made shoes, who showed her at once how he chewed the leather to make it soft. Connie needed good shoes, and these would make an excellent gift. She showed the man lengths of silk, to his immediate delight. Nearly running out, she thought. Who knows if there will ever be more. Bodhi traded away all his fresh fish for a new, very sharp axe and a clay jar full of fermented cabbage. Can open it in the summer, 5 summers, still good. Bodhi, who had learned from his father the importance of vegetables and fruits at sea, was pleased by the tight wax seal on the jar. Alice got busy at once pulling a bad tooth and looking at an infected bite. She dug deep into her kit to clean and stitch up her patients. Nobody wants their dick blown off? Standing over near the coals of the fire, the man was clearly disappointed. He had gone into his hut and changed into a deerskin dress. His hair was long and greasy but brushed and laying on his shoulders. Enormous grapefruits filled the front of his dress, and he encircled his mouth hugely and red with some shiny, fatty berry mixture. Alice smiled and looked around the party. I think we're okay with our dicks. Thank you. The man with the grapefruit stalked back into his hut. Don't be shy, Papa Croc said. You knock on his door if you need to. Trading done, they stood awkwardly, trying to decide how best to move on. You stay, Papa Croc said broadly. Stay and trade stories. He lowered his chin and raised his eyebrows at Eddie. Eddie shrugged. We gotta make camp somewhere. Papa Croc grinned and told Rocky to bank the fire. The sun set long and late, stretching out the shadows of trees and making the day seem to go on forever. A tripod of iron appeared, and 2 men hung a huge iron pot. Other men brought salt water in buckets, followed by the squirming sea bugs in baskets and nets. The man with the grapefruits had taken off his costume and rubbed the paint from his face, but a pink stain remained around his mouth. He sat by the pot with a long metal spoon, fishing out the curled red carapaces and piling them on wooden plates. He scowled into the steam of the pot, speaking to no one. Another black man preferred a leather sack that turned out to be full of sauce made with sea salt and red chilies. Eddie tried to bite and coughed long and hard with Alice pounding him on the back. They all ate until there was a huge pile of shells in front of each of them. The bugs were labor-intensive, having to be broken in half, the meat sucked out, the heads full of juices, and the tail only a mouthful of meat at best. Still, they were plentiful and delicious. The chili sauce, when used with caution, brightened them considerably. What did you mean by marks? Said Bodhi, patting his full belly. Forever marks, he said. A bearded man on the other side of the fire smiled that same missing tooth grin the rest of them had. He rolled up his deerskin pants to show a tattoo, black and grainy, on the side of one tanned calf. It was the image of a wild boar, its tusks heavily exaggerated. Marks, to show a story of where you were from, where you were brave, forever, needle and ash. Papa Croc stood at once. I will tell our best story, the story of how I killed a god. The god whose skins I wear now, as my mark. He walked close to the fire so that the orange light lit his face from below. He spread his arms wide and began. In the old time, when women still walked the earth, they called them crocodile. Caimans, Flora muttered under her breath. When women walked the earth, Connie whispered back, puzzled. Crocodiles were small then. People kept them in their homes. They taught them to play games and eat from their hands. Corruption! A man yelled from the far side of the fire, but Flora could not see his face. We live not in the shadow of corruption, Rocky piped up in response. Exactly, Papa Croc went on smoothly. In the corruption, Croc was everywhere, small and insidious under your beds. Then, when women leave the earth, Crocs grow large. They eat up men, they eat up corruption. They eat up old world until nothing left. They grow so big they can rule. This was in my father's time. Then came the god. The god's name was Attila. She was bigger than big as a tree. She'd lay her eggs and wait for us, wait for Delacroix. She'd swallow up children, she'd swallow up men, her nest full of eggs of gods, someday as big as she. Delacroix was a young boy, young like Rocky. He goes to Attila with his knives. Croc pulls his long knives from their leather sheaths and showed their finely honed edges. Delacroix say, "Come get me." And Attila, she come. He stabbed her in the mouth. Croc illustrated this by thrusting his long knife up into the air, its blade reflecting the firelight as it quivered in his sinewy arm. But Attila smart. Attila roll and roll. Delacroix hold on. Delacroix wait until she roll over and he put his other knife in her belly. Delacroix pull his knife up, spilling Attila's guts in the mud. He slay Attila the wicked, and dead men spill from her guts. Delacroix free them in their death. He take her skin. He guard her eggs until they hatch. He made the next god, Camilla, who grew as big as her mother. He became Papa Croc, and he lead his people. Croc puffed up his chest at this, putting both hands across wide pecs. "Forever with the skull of Attila!" came the yell from one, from many. Alice laughed and stood. "Wonderful story, but tell me, why do you speak of the time when women walked the earth? Women still do." Eddie shot her a look, but she did not sit down. Flora rose as well. "Surely each of you had a mother. You know women walk the earth." Laughter rose like embers from the fire. "I am born of crocodile egg," Papa Croc said. "I'm born from bees." Rocky's voice was always tuned to pure joy. "No, but..." Alice glanced around. "Really, though, you came from a mother and a father, a man and a woman." "No women," Papa Croc said almost dismissively. "No more." Alice began to unbutton her cotton shift, dingy now, but new from almond. She was still laughing. "No, really, maybe it's been a long time since you've seen one?" Eddie stood up. "Alice, don't." Alice shrugged, pulling her shirt open and exposing her freckled breasts. Bodhi smiled in open appreciation. "See?" Papa Croc laughed, scoffing. "Not real." "Big deal," said the grapefruit man. "Anyone can have this." Alice looked around at him. "What? Not real woman. Never real woman." Flora looked around at her company. "What's a real woman?" General laughter followed her question. "A real woman. One who can do it. Give life." Alice and Flora looked at each other. "How do you know one of us can do it?" Alice's smile was faltering. Flora looked into the fire. "Do it," Papa Croc said, thrust forward. "Show us you can do it. Then you are a woman." "No one here has ever seen a child born?" Alice looked around the circle again. She tried to meet Flora's eye, but Flora would not look up. "Never. No woman left. No one can do it." "How do you know I've never done it before?" Bodhi put his hand on her, but Alice stepped away, letting it fall. "Show us the mark." This came from the man who made marks, who carried his tool over his shoulder even now. "Your forever mark, the one that shows you gave life." "What mark?" Alice asked, pulling at her skirt a little. "Do you mean your lightning?" Papa Croc crowed. He clawed his fingers across his own belly, sketching zigzags over his skin. He held out his hand to a man at his right and put a tiny wooden carving into his dark palm. "Here," he said. Alice looked down. Flora came a little closer to see the small effigy. It was the body of a woman with heavy breasts and a pregnant belly as round as the full moon. The belly was shot over with tiny, intricate stretch marks, white in the pale wood. The body had the tooth-ridged head of a crocodile. "No lightning, no baby." "No baby, no woman." Croc folded his arms, turning away from her and ending the discussion. A story of bravery." "Ah," Bodhi said, smiling. Alice sat down in his place, buttoning her shirt. "I have been brave so many times. If I had a mark like yours, I would need more than one. A mark of an octopus, and a shark, and a storm, and monsters, and a great many men." Papa Croc laughed loudly at this, the other men joining in after him. "So brave," he said. "Tell us a story." Bodhi cleared his throat. All right. Bodhi in my head is Matthew McConaughey. That should have been all right. Once I was on the deck of my ship, the Ursula. It was a gray day, the air was heavy, I was alone. I could feel that the sea was uneasy, like a man spoiling for a fight. I turned around to look behind me where I had come from, and a tentacle shot up out of the sea. It wrapped itself around me and pulled me into the water. It was the most terrifying creature the sea has to offer, the giant squid. He put his scarred arms into the air, showing where the tentacles fought him, wrapping around his body and dragging him into the deep. I pulled the knife from my boot, he said, doing so, and showing it to them in the firelight. It was shorter than Papa Croc's, but viciously sharp, with a set of teeth down low near the handle. The beast pulled me close and made to eat me, but I plunged this into its eye. Its blue-black blood dribbled out into the water, and it dropped me. I had won, but I was lost. I fought to swim instead of drowning, but the currents took me away from my boat. I wrecked on a beach, and my boat did too. It coughed up bloody water, but I was alive. Eyes grew big all around the fire. He had them spellbound. There's no way that happened, Flora thought. But what if Eddie told his story? What if he talked about killing the lion's lion? Who would believe that? Or if I told them I came from women who whisper to pregnant horses and make boys into women with their magic? Flora schooled her face. She listened. Why don't we tell? I've sat in this circle so many times, it's always the men who tell. There are women in these stories, there have to be. But I never hear it from them. Bodhi crouched down low, showing how he woke up afraid. I awoke on the beach of a great city. It had shining towers and flying machines, and the king of that place found me, and I told him I had killed a sea monster. He told me the terrible monster was attacking his city at night. It was as tall as 3 men, and it ate babies. No one could defeat it. So I spent the night in his house, and I met his beautiful wife. Not real, said the Grapefruit Man dismissively. The wife's not real. What? Bodhi asked, derailed. Papa Croc was sucking the meat out of one last cold bug. Was she big in the belly? Did you see her give life? No, Bodhi said uncertainly. She was a man, Croc said, throwing the shell in the face. King had a husband. Bodhi shrugged. She looked like a woman to me. Anyway, I met the monster that very night. He was huge. Bodhi bent backward, looking up as if meeting the eye line of a towering monster. His teeth were the size of my hand and dripping with red blood. I struck him in the leg with my knife, but he didn't even feel it. The blade was trapped in the bone, and I was defenseless. He swept his big hands after me, but he was slow. I ran between his legs. I dodged, and I jumped, and I ran. Then I picked up a stone from the ground. I used my belt, and I slung it up at him. The stone hit him in the eye, just like the squid. Black blood came pouring out. He was a monster too, but on the land instead of the sea. Bodhi bent forward and put his hands on his knees. The king thanked me. The people wanted to make me their new king. The king's wife came to me, and, he glanced at the Grapefruit Man. She blew my dick off. Thank you.
Meg, where can people buy the 3rd book in your
You can buy the 3rd book, the 1st book, the 2nd book, the entire series right here at the bindery tonight. They still have copies out here, and they will be selling them in the way that is customary in our city. I'm happy to sign them, and you can also get it wherever fine books are sold, right up the street at the Booksmiths. Yeah, sorry. Also, Borderlands in San Francisco has quite a few copies, many of which are signed, but if you run into me on the street, I'll be happy to personalize it. Follow me on Twitter at Meg Elison. Follow me on Twitter at Cliterary Salon. I would love to see your beautiful faces again, but it's not all about me. And you can find out about upcoming tour dates and more books, because there are always more books coming, at megelison.com.
That's our show. I really encourage you to go shop. We have another show. We have a show every month, and our next show will be at Perdita on Divisadero, which is like a cool woman-owned little business with like feminist books and feminist art for sale, so you should go there anyway. But you should especially come on May 17th when we have another show with the lineup that is still coming together. Like Nick said, you can get more information about Cliterary Salon on our Twitter, on our Facebook, whatever. But mostly you should buy some books right now. So thank you guys so much for coming.